It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222, and your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com. That's randykabc@gmail.com. It's going to be a sexy show tonight because we're talking parking minimums. That's what you tune in for. Policy wonk stuff like that. That's why you're here. So it's an interesting 24-hour news cycle. Most of the local news in the last day and a half was completely dominated by the Metro hijack story. We did 3 hours of calls on the John Phillips show yesterday, where a guy boards a bus after midnight, shoots somebody dead, hijacks the bus, takes hostages. There's a chase. There's a spike strip. There's flashbang grenades. A standoff ensued. Totally insane situation. The same day that that story is being covered, another story is being covered about a law that Gavin Newsom just signed. This law is AB 2553. 2553. And what does 2553 do? Well, it is a state mandate. This is authored by Laura Friedman, who wants to be the next Adam Schiff. And it makes it so if a city is zoning out where an apartment building can go, if it happens to be within any proximity to a bus stop that has a bus that comes every 20 minutes, well, that city cannot impose any parking minimums. What's a parking minimum? Let's say you build an apartment building that's got 30 units. So potentially you could have 60 people living there, maybe 90 people living there, depending on how big the units are. You would think that if you've got an apartment building with 30 units, you would need minimum 30 parking spaces, maybe more like 60 parking spaces, because there's a lot of people with two-car families. Maybe you got to do those parking garages where they've got tandem spaces, even though that's a nightmare. But you want to assume that for the people that move into that apartment, that want to be able to work and pay the rent and continue to live in that apartment, they need ways to get around town. So what AB 2553 does, and it does it on a state level, there have been very similar proposals in the past. In fact, this actually is a similar standard to what was already passed a few years ago, except that one said if the bus comes every 15 minutes. So now we've actually expanded it. If the bus comes every 20 minutes, you live near a bus intersection, that is considered a major transit stop. It's not just if you live next to, let's say, the North Hollywood Red Line station, or you live next to Hollywood and Highland or Union Station. You live near two bus stops that have a bus going every 20 minutes. Well, the state now says that that developer, if they want to, doesn't have to build any parking. Now, what do they say are the benefits of this? Well, it's a lot cheaper to build an apartment building if there's no parking, because that's a lot less floors they have to build. That's a lot less infrastructure they have to build, especially with earthquake standards. All they have to do is build the units and you're good to go. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, where are all the cars going to go? And that's where we really start to figure out that these policies make no sense. Because if you are living under the assumption that every single person who moves into that building is going to go car-free all the time to the point where they don't need to own a car or ever park it anywhere, I happen to think that's kind of nonsense, especially when you have situations like the hostage situation on the bus the other night. Metro is not safe right now. Even if it was, you expect people to do all, these aren't going to be incredibly affordable units. It might make them a little cheaper, but I would imagine most people that are looking for apartments would like somewhere to park. I got to tell you, I've had friends that have had apartments in parts of Hollywood where parking, it's a nightmare. It's absolute hell. My old radio partner, Gina Gratt, who's now on the Woody Show on 98.7, she used to live on Argyle. You know that street that's right past Vine? It's the one that you take if you want to get on the 101 freeway. Well, on the other side of Franklin. Anyone who lives on that street, good luck ever finding parking for anything ever. Because most of those apartments don't have parking spaces, so you're relegated to street parking, and there is only so many of those. So, true story, she had her mother staying with her and picked her up from the airport, driving to the apartment, driving all around, trying to find a parking space anywhere close to the house. She ended up having to go park at her not boyfriend's house 2 neighborhoods away and stay there because there was no way to actually park. I don't understand it. I understand wanting to encourage multimodal living. I totally understand if we had a system that worked and a system that was safe, encouraging people, hey, if you can, bike to work. If you can, take Metro. But making it so you assume that people can live in this city without a car, I do not understand. This is going to impact a lot of neighborhoods because this is a statewide bill, and any places that have huge pieces of transit in them, like, I don't know, let's say Long Beach and the Blue Line, it's going to mean a lot more parking nightmares for the residents of Long Beach if you live anywhere near the Blue Line. You live anywhere near the Orange Line. And no, we don't do the AB line. It's like Twitter and X. Nobody actually calls it that. Nobody calls the Orange Line the G line. They don't do it. It doesn't happen. Go back to what it was called before. My question to you at 800-222-KABC is this. 1-800-222-5222. Do you think it makes any sense to build apartment buildings with no parking? 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. Maybe you agree with the bill. Maybe you don't. 800-222-KABC. For more, let's go to NBC4.
And now to a battle of parking versus public transit. There's a new state law trying to get more people to take the bus or the train while lowering the barrier to build new housing. However, in the city of Long Beach, parking is a big problem. NBC4's McCollum Medina covers Long Beach for us. He's been talking to neighbors about what that new law could mean for them.
This is how bad parking gets here in Long Beach.
And good for McCollum Medina. You get a story like this. Unlike the story he had to do in Long Beach 2 days ago with the porta potties, because that is not a reporter's dream.
This is how bad parking gets here in Long Beach. Some neighborhoods see cars just jam-packed in. You can see some cars that are double parked down the street there. A lot of neighbors say this new law will make things worse.
Where you want them to park, if there's no parking,
it's a mess.
It's a mess.
Just look at what Denise Alvarez has to deal with on the daily. Cars double parked, causing other cars to drive around them.
All you see.
Yes, because just because you don't build parking doesn't mean there won't be cars that need to park somewhere. Maybe some people will be able to go into that building and say, I don't need a car. But that's real hard to get around in this city unless, let's say, you live in Long Beach, you work in Long Beach, and you've got the time and the energy to deal with Metro. It's just, this is not feasible, at least in my opinion. Maybe someday it would be, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. At least if you build the parking, then you can encourage people to use transit, but you got to have a place for the car. There are certain trips, I don't understand. Okay, you want people to commute to and from work on transit, and let's say they're close to transit, their work is close to transit. Maybe I can understand that. But then let's take grocery shopping. How exactly are you supposed to do that efficiently on public transit? When I go into Trader Joe's or I go into Gelson's, I come out with 6 or 7 bags of food. I have to load them into my car. There's no way I could carry that much. Otherwise, now I've got to go to the grocery store 4 or 5 times a week. And for some people, especially busy people working multiple jobs, that's kind of inconvenient.
Causing other cars to drive around them.
All you see is a whole line of cars just parked in the middle of the streets, and cars can't pass by.
Neighbors fear that they'll see more of that with the new law that allows cities to do away with parking minimums for new housing projects that are within a half a mile of major transit stops.
A half a mile, almost everywhere is a half a mile from 2 bus stops. So really, they might call these transit hubs, but a bus stop is a bus stop. And Metro is not built out enough for this. And even in 10 years, it won't be built out enough for this. But even if it was, now you're taking away the choice. You're forcing people onto a system.
The idea is to make it easier for builders to create more homes and help ease the state's housing crisis. Neighbors say they fear it's going to create a bigger parking crisis.
Hey, I got a question. You know how we're doing away with parking minimums? What about the disabled? What about the handicapped? No spaces, no handicap spaces, nothing?
Neighbors say,
do we have to take part of the curb on the street and paint it blue?
Neighbors say they fear it's going to create a bigger parking crisis.
After 3 p.m., that's when there's really no parking at all.
Jam-packed.
Yes.
Sweet Escobar says some families have 3 or 4 cars each, which adds to the problem. And while the law...
And then you look at what's going on with ADUs, it's the same thing. I totally support building ADUs. I think if you're going to do it, you need to have some place for a driveway. You've got to have some place for parking. You have to consider that. Otherwise, your neighbors are all going to hate your guts.
Escobar says some families have 3 or 4 cars each, which adds to the problem. And while the law, in theory, hopes to encourage more people to ditch their cars and use mass transit, she says that's not reality.
I am working as a hospice nurse, and I use my car so much. I cannot go patient's house here and there just using a metro.
It's not feasible for so many jobs. Let's say that you move into one of these apartments and you make your living as a gardener or a plumber, and you have a work truck that you need to get to jobs. You got to go fix them pipes. You can't bring all that equipment yourself. If you happen to be a landscaper, what? Can you bring the lawnmower on the transit? So now there's whole classes of people that are never even going to consider this housing, because I would imagine when you're apartment hunting, you're going to be looking for places with parking spaces.
Ricardo Elizalde says Metro is not an option when you work at 4 or 5 in the morning. He's also worried about security on the trains and buses, and he's not alone.
I don't feel so safe.
The new law, which goes into effect in January, only applies to new housing developments, but with the blue line running right through the middle of Long Beach, it could impact a heck of a lot of neighborhoods. In Long Beach, I'm Makala Medina, NBC4 News.
And you pair that with any of the other laws that have been created, like the law that you can turn your single-family lot into a fourplex if you want to. That would be considered new housing. I want to know how you feel about this, because this is the state governing from top down. Statewide law goes into effect in January. Anywhere near a transit hub, which is an intersection with 2 bus stops where a bus comes every 20 minutes, that building does not need parking. Do you think that makes any sense in Southern California? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Do you think it makes any sense to eliminate parking minimums from apartment buildings in Southern California? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Gavin Newsom just signed a bill that makes it easier in the state of California for developers to build apartment buildings with no parking minimums. Do you think this makes any sense? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. The law, AB 2553, written by Laura Friedman, who's running to replace Adam Schiff in Congress, says that anywhere that is in a transit hub, which would be anywhere a half mile from 2 bus stops that have a bus that comes every 20 minutes, the old law was 15 minutes, that means you don't need parking there because people can take transit. Do you think that makes any sense for Southern California? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Adam in Huntington Beach. Adam, hello.
Hey, Randy. All right. What's the definition of a bus and what's the definition of a bus stop? Because San Bernardino County, Riverside County, Orange County, Los Angeles County, they all have transit agencies. There's also paratransits. There's trolleys. There's shuttles. It goes everything from golf carts to the kind of bus that you might see, like a tour group that's being used for it could be used for a tour group. Now, that could be a bus stop. Now, also, do the bus stops need to be permanent? Or can it be a virtual bus stop? Because you've got these casinos. Let's take it on the far end, right? Let's say casino bus runs from whatever casino it is and drops off and picks up people at, I don't know, Costco at the corner of so-and-so and so-and-so. Now, there might not be a pole there with a sign that says bus stop for Metrolink or the casino even, but the bus has stopped and it's publicized. What about a independent city? All right, Laguna Beach has got that blue bus that scoots on through. Newport has got one. Irvine has got its own little bus transit system that goes from the John Wayne Airport to the Tustin Metrolink. So you've got big buses, right, that run along major streets, right? Reseda Boulevard, Roscoe Boulevard. You've got ones that go probably along Hollywood Boulevard. Then you've got smaller buses that make loops around.
Hey, Adam, I got a
cities.
question for you. Adam, hold on, Adam. I just want to know. Yeah. I've got about 33 minutes left in this hour, and I really don't feel like talking. Can you fill the next 33 minutes with talking about all the other kinds of buses that are in Southern California?
Well, it is very interesting, and I I find it very interesting because you can get if you have a college ID, right, you can ride the bus and Metrolink for absolutely free. So for the cost of signing up for one class, I don't know if you know this or not, but for the cost of signing up for one class at your local community college, or you get to ride, and if you verify your email through when you're signing up for Metrolink or for the bus, whatever bus system is near you, you verify using your school email address, then you get to ride the bus and the train for free, completely free.
Saves you that $1.75.
What's that?
It saves you that $1.75. Adam, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. I feel like he was about to tell me every single college that's in Southern California that you can apply to, which, if we had more than an hour to do this show, we could entertain this conversation. But we got to get to a lot more calls. 800-222-KABC. Let's go to Dave in Wilmington. Dave, hello.
Hello. So, Randy, I think that it's a bad idea not to provide the parking necessary for a brand new apartment complex. I mean, it's just more of that, woke stuff where road diets, trying to get people into buses and all, trains. Southern California wasn't designed that way. You realize that, I do. And the other people that don't, I just have no idea what's going on in their head. I've lived in areas where a neighbor decides to divide his rooms and have like 10 tenants, and every one of them has a car. So I don't know where everybody's going to park, and I think that we need to enforce parking. You've got to have the facilities for your tenants.
It's the only way it makes sense, but by not doing it, we're taxing our curbs, we're taxing the sidewalks, making it impossible for other people to park anywhere. I mean, let's say you're going to have friends over. How exactly are they ever going to visit you? Because there's nowhere to ever park. True story. Thanks so much for the call, Dave. I had this friend. He lived in Encino off of, I think it was one street over from White Oak near Ventura Boulevard. And he was throwing a housewarming party for his apartment. And it's right by that Ralph's. And we're going up and down the street. Cannot find parking. I said, hey, hope you enjoy the apartment. We didn't go to that party. I'm not doing this for an hour. I'm done. Me not being able to find parking gets me real mad. I will tell you another true story. I was taking a Pilates class in Encino on Ventura Boulevard near Louise, and I was enjoying it. It was a nice class. It was finally getting back into it. I had to rage quit once because I could not find parking. And that was in a shopping center with a CVS, and there was no parking. Me not finding parking makes me mad. More of your phone calls coming up. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. The state of California is making it easier for apartment developers to build buildings with no parking. Does that make any sense to you? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. You can email me as well. I read and respond to everyone at randykabc@gmail.com. That's randykabc@gmail.com. Gavin Newsom just signed Assembly Bill 2553. It makes it so no city can mandate parking minimums for any development near a major transit stop. What does that mean? That means that anyone who's building an apartment building near two bus stops that have a bus that runs at least every 20 minutes don't have to build any parking for their apartment building. Oh, we're going to traffic. That's how bad the parking is. My question to you at 800-222-KABC is this. Does that make any sense in Southern California? 800-222-KABC. Let's go to Mark in Orange County. Mark, hello.
Hey, good subject. At least you're not talking about Mexican food today. Hey, yeah, all over. It's that way all over Orange County too, because they need to enforce the laws with the apartments, like that one guy said too. So many people rent out houses and apartments, and there's too many people living in the units. And I know there's a law in the books. Most cities have, like in other cities, they enforce it. You can't have, like, if you have 10 people living in one apartment and everybody drives a car, where are they going to park? And the parking is ridiculous in Orange County. Same thing. I mean, there's no parking anywhere. And if you don't have a garage, you're just screwed. And the population is just so crowded here. I mean, California was never meant to have 40 million people. So that's part of the problem. Too many people too. It just
well, what's funny too is as massive as this state is, if the people were spread out a little more, because there's so many pieces of California that are straight up empty, but everyone's crammed into this little tiny area known as Southern California. Half the state is just LA County and Orange County and San Bernardino County.
Yeah, because of the jobs and the development, and that's a good fact. It's like if they could develop Northern California a little bit more, but then they would have to get rid of some of the farming and stuff. But I don't know, it's just so crowded. I'm still in the process of moving all my stuff out, but I've been moving out for a little while now. I already got a house in the Midwest. I'm just moving stuff over to right now, so. It's like it's just too crowded, and the only thing good about it is the weather. Everything else is pretty much crap.
Yeah, I hear that sentiment a lot. Let me just give you one piece of advice. Make sure you get that KABC app, because the talk radio in the Midwest is not going to be nearly as good as the talk radio here.
Oh, I will, because I'll have to have something to laugh about when you guys are talking about parking and all this other crap here. So.
We do get a lot of that. Thanks so much for the call, Mark. Appreciate it. We have a lot of people who listen to this radio station who used to live in California. And I always wonder myself, because we talk about so many local issues, I think I know what it is now. It's kind of that same feeling that you would get if you grew up watching Married with Children on Fox 11. You felt better about yourself because Al Bundy's life was so terrible. So if you left California and now you're living in New Mexico or Texas or Wisconsin or wherever you moved to, and you get to hear about how awful California is on a daily basis, it makes you feel good about yourself. Even, let's say, for instance, you moved to Texas, and while Texas might be cheaper, Texas is humid. So in order to remind yourself why you're putting up with the humidity, you listen to this radio station, like, oh, yeah, it's because of all that insanity. California, we're the Al Bundy of the United States. Let's go to Mark in Huntington Beach. Mark, hello.
Hey, love and marriage go together like a horse
Like
and
a horse and carriage.
This I tell you, brother, you can't have one without the other. All right. Hey, besides that, how you doing?
Doing great.
Good. I'm just thinking, before they start building these places, these new ones, okay, all the new, because they're going to have to build apartment complexes. We build subterranean parking structures beneath each one of them. And we take some of that money we're taking to Ukraine and help these people who are developers purchase those so we can have parking under every apartment complex so there's no problem with parking. You park underneath. It's simple. You just go down underneath. We got to figure, if we all put our heads together, we can come up with something. I just got to say that. And then another thing. Can I say one more thing?
Of course you can.
Okay, the fire problem. Why don't we have 25 of these jets all in one place to carry the water? We could make it rain, all right? Rain. That'd be it with the fire. Okay. I said my piece.
That's a really good point. Mark, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. And singing Sinatra with you was one of the highlights of my day. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. Let's go to Barney in Sherman Oaks. Barney, hello.
Hi, I live between Burbank and Oxnard and Kester and Sepulveda. And they've sent out a flyer that they're planning on doing this around that area, tearing down a bunch of the duplexes and apartment houses along Kester and Sepulveda, because they have buses that go Sepulveda and Kester and Oxnard. They're trying to make it so that works, but that's a bunch of crap. Already we're having trouble parking in our area. People park in the street from all around the area. And if they do this stupid thing, they're going to have more problems with parking, and they're going to tear down these places that are already occupied. And I think it's crazy idea, but that's nothing new from Sacramento. And I think they need to stop this kind of stupid stuff. And the underground parking, I think electric cars can be another problem on top of it. It's another stupid thing. So anyways, our neighborhood is going to be screwed up if they do this. And that's what they're intending to do. So I think it's stupid. But stupid comes from there. Okay.
Yeah, stupid comes from Sacramento, and it comes from LA City Hall, because they fully endorse this stuff. And now they don't even need to get the blame for it. We can't even yell at Nithya Raman about this, because this is the state taking over the city zoning on this. Barney, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. Let's go to Dwayne in Encino. Dwayne, hello.
Hey, Randy. How you doing today? Good stuff.
Doing great.
All right. So here's the deal. I think it fits with the agenda that's already out there. We already know Newsom said in 2030 you won't be able to buy gas cars anymore in the state of California, and other states have complied to in other countries. We also have the World Economic Forum with Agenda 2030 that says you will own nothing and like it. So therefore, if we build buildings that don't have parking spots and we don't own cars, because every Tesla will be a cruise car, taxi, Ubers will still be around with no drivers, then the plan, it makes sense. No one will own a car. And everyone will either use public transportation or they'll jump into someone's loaned out Tesla on the street. So I get why they're doing it. It doesn't make sense now if you're looking at it for today, but it makes perfect sense for the agenda that is in front of us, that is at a larger level than just in the state of California.
Oh, I think that's fascinating. That's a really good take that I haven't thought about in a while, because that was the dream. It's one of those things that Elon Musk said was going to be done by 2018, then 2020, and now who knows when he says it's actually going to happen. But you're right. Teslas would be fully autonomous, and you could literally, when you're at work, have your Tesla go on taxi mode, and then it could pick up passengers, drop them off, and you could theoretically be in a situation where if you just had a constant fleet of cars that were going around anywhere, you're right, no one would actually need a car. But I think we're so far off from that.
I think they get approval in the next year, if they haven't already gotten it. And they already got the cruise cars on the streets. They've been in Arizona for years. So I don't think we're as far off as people want us to be. I think that the people who are reacting to things today are not looking further enough down the road to see what the bigger picture plan is for even greater control over us. Think about the road diet. We don't need the cars as much if they're all talking to each other, and you can have bike lanes everywhere so people can ride bikes. I think this is all part of a bigger agenda that is going on across the country and across the world. And if you read the World Economic Forum's Agenda 2030, they even wrote the book and said, here's what we're going to do to you, and you'll like it.
That is fascinating. Dwayne, thanks so much for zooming out on this, giving us the bigger picture. I really appreciate their perspective. This audience is full of really, really, really smart people. I will say, as someone that has been a passenger in a Waymo, I'm not totally opposed to it. That being said, Tesla full self-driving, I've seen some videos where that thing is out of control. Could we eventually see a society where nobody really does need a car because there's always just cars always available, like a people mover system for an entire city? Maybe. But what do you do if you got to go on a road trip? Anyway, lots of things to figure out. In the meantime, we need parking because we have cars now. But Stuart writes in at randykabc@gmail.com. Randy, great issue. As an apartment building owner, this is a very bad idea that I've witnessed where tenants who want to have a friend or family member have a very difficult time visiting, especially for older tenants who need visitors and service people. In West LA, this is already a massive challenge to get service people a spot to park so they can make repairs. That is a very, very, very good point. Hey, look at this. 790 KABC welcomes Danny Elfman to the Hollywood Bowl on November 2nd. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. But right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-790-5222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing. Beverly writes in at randykabc@gmail.com. Hey, Randy, a couple of months ago, I had jury duty. They gave us a free bus pass. I took the trolley home from downtown Santa Fe Station to the Middletown Station, just 2 stops. Once I got off the train, I started my half-a-mile walk home. As I crossed over the freeway overpass on the catwalk, the sidewalk was littered with drug paraphernalia, homeless tents, and trash. Homeless drug addicts live on the catwalk. Thus, I was taking my life into my own hands walking there alone. I only do it when I have jury duty. That, of course, is Beverly from the America's finest city, San Diego. Let's go to Bill in La Cañada. Bill, hello.
Hey, Randy, this makes perfect sense from the standpoint of the DEI cult. Think about it. Hugo Soto Martinez, Nithya Raman, and local bureaucrats have complained that DEI constituents cannot afford to maintain their vehicles. So Lily White, Gavin Newsom, and Laura Friedman are solving this equity problem by stuffing mostly black and brown people into densely packed tenements like caged rabbits and then forcing them to hop onto a feces-filled bus hijacked by psycho killers.
That is quite the picture that you paint, Bill. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. Hey, Hugo, you got a shout out.
Yeah, clap that up.
Roger writes in at randykabc@gmail.com. If they're going to build housing without parking, it better be at least half cheaper on the rent. But there's some positives. No vehicles with stupid chirping horn alarms, loud stereos or exhaust, or pesky saws cutting catalytic converters in the middle of the night.
Let's criminalize catalytic converters. Let's criminalize copper.
Well, there we go. Another great discussion to be had. And I was so impressed by that one caller from Encino because there is another angle of this in the future. And if you're really looking forward, yeah, you could make an argument that in 20 years, could we see a society where the way technology is, no one has to have a car? Some people will still want a car. Some people still need one for work. But I will say, as somebody that hates driving myself, I am curious about that. But we got to plan for what is now, not just what is the future. And what they're doing right now doesn't make any sense. But hey, love having the discussion. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It's always such a pleasure to bring this show to you every day. I'm here every single day from 5 to 6. Also do the John Phillips Show every day from noon to 3 right here on KABC. And if you miss any episode of this show, go to kabc.com/newsblitz. Go to the Apple Podcast app, search KABC Newsblitz. You can follow along and subscribe, get every episode straight to your phone. And what's really cool is you can do a transcript. You could read this podcast. I don't know why you would want to do that, unless it's to find all the restaurants on the happy hour shows. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow at 5 for another News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC.